All right, guys, so welcome to another coding challenge with Pam. And the problem this week has to do with finding the longest substring without repeating characters. And I really am going to spend a little bit of time walking through a picture and trying to sort through how to do this first. But Yumnet, you said you worked on it a little bit. Sylvie, did you work on it? Just trying to get a sense of if anybody's worked on it or solved it.
No, ma'am, I did not. I'm
Okay,
kind of behind the curve, but I'm trying to catch up on things.
no problem. Look, that's part of what this is for, is so you can, get some ideas and get some inspiration. And you guys have a lot of different moving parts going on right now. So you got to
Thank
get
you.
it in when you can. All
Thank
right. So let's take a look at this problem, actually. And I've got it over here. Well, actually, I posted here. So the idea is, and there's actually several problems that kind of are similar to this that have to do with finding a substring of something and doing something with it. So that's why this is kind of a good technique to take a look at. So
We don't see your screen yet.
oh,
In case you're
thank
sharing.
you. You're right. You're right. Here we go. There we go.
There we go. Got it.
Yep. All right. So the first step, guys, is always to just, and I'm going to mute, and you guys can unmute if you need to, is to just make sure you have a really clear picture of what the problem is that you're trying to solve. So whenever you're looking at these coding sites that have these challenge problems, they typically give you some examples. And the first thing that I like to do is look at the examples and try to understand the input and the solution and why that's the solution, right? So here it says you're trying to find the length of the longest substring without repeating characters. So a substring is just a portion of a string, right? So if I'm looking at this, the answer here is 3. Let's walk through and understand why it's 3. So the idea is I start looking at the first character. So A is a substring. And at this point, that's the longest repeating substring is 1, right? Then I can move to the next character. And the AB is a substring that doesn't have any repeating characters. So that's 2. I want to move on. ABC is a substring. Nothing is repeated. So 3 is the longest. So each time I'm keeping track of what's the longest number that I found, right? If I find a bigger number, when I first found 1, then when we did AB, we said, well, that is 2, and 2 is bigger than 1, so we replace that. Then when we go to ABC, 3 is bigger than 2, so now the longest one that I've seen is 3, right? But now what happens when we get here, when we add on the extra A? So here's where we have to start thinking a little bit about the algorithm, because now I have repeating characters. I have the A in here twice. So I've got to think about what should I do? Once I find a character that has been repeated, what should I do? So far we've gotten this as our longest substring. But when I get to A, I can't add that on to this string, right? So do either of you guys have any ideas about, what does that mean? Just on paper, not in terms of how we code this. Should I start looking from A? Should I, back up a character? Any ideas about what we should do about this? I know I have a smaller group than usual today. Let's see, there's somebody else. All right, so let's think about this. Let's kind of talk through it, because I also would kind of like to just walk through this whole string one time. I kind of don't want to go back and restart. I want to try to see what's going on. So I've got ABC, but now I've come up with another A. So I can start, if I take off this A at the front, if I still have this A here, this is still a substring, and it's possibly the start of a new longer substring, right? So this is the kind of stuff we have to think about. And so now I'm going to show you guys a couple of cases before we actually code this. So in this case, I've got BCA. There's no repeating letters in BCA, right? But it's still 3, so it's not any bigger. This is not the most, that's why I have another example we'll walk through. So then I've got BCA. When we add on this next B, I've seen a B before. So I need to take off a character. Look at what I have. Do I have any repeating characters in here? No. So CAB is possibly the start of a new longer substring, right? Now, kind of the sneaky thing about what we're looking at right now is each time we took off the first character, that happened to be the one that was repeating. But it may not always be the case, which is why we're going to walk through a different example before we start coding, okay?
I think that messed me up because I started coding with this example in mind, and then I'm like, oh, no, that's not right.
Yeah, I kind of did too. So, matter of fact, let's go to my other example. That will give us a little more insight about what we need to do. So here's the one that I created that has a lot going on, okay? And what I have is, here's my string. I just put the position of the characters of the string underneath because we're going to end up referring to that later on in my code, because the way we're going to define the substring is by keeping track of the starting position and the ending position. But for the moment, don't worry about that. So we're just going to walk through and see kind of what happens. So I have my A. So right now, the longest substring is A, right? Go to the next letter. I have AB. The longest substring is 2, AB. I get ABC. The longest is 3, right? I get ABCA. This has a repeated character. A is in here twice. I need to start a new substring that does not include A. So if I get rid of this A and I look at what I have, I get rid of the beginning, because remember, I'm moving along what the beginning of my substring is. Then BCA doesn't have repeated characters, so we have 3. This is similar to what we had so far. We add on another letter, B. Same thing. It has a repeat. We take this off. We have CAB. All right, same thing. I have a change here in a second. We have CAB. We add the C. That's a repeated character. We take this off. We have this, right? Now we're at ABC. So then we add on the next letter, which is X. ABCX. So that's 4 characters. So that's now a longer string, right? We add another, ABCXB. Okay, B is repeated in here. So I need to start a new substring that doesn't have it in there. So if I take off this A, I have BCXB. It still has a repeated character in it, because there's a lot of different approaches, but in this approach, we just keep changing our start until we have a set that doesn't have any repeated characters in it. So now I have CXB, right? And when we add things on, so we have CXB, we take off the B, we have CXB, we do this, CXBB, have to take it off, take off the C, XBB still has a repeated character, take off the X. Oh, I think I messed up my slide here. I think this is supposed to be BB. Yeah, this is BB. And then we end up just with the B, because we have to walk through everything. So in this case, remember here when we had ABCX, that was our longest string, right? Now, what I'm actually doing along the way is I'm keeping 2 variables that keep track of what's the start of my string and what's the end of my string. But also, so I want you guys, we've talked about something earlier in another challenge. In terms of keeping track of the letters that I've had so far, because I'm going to have some place to check and see if I've seen this letter before. Does anybody have an idea of what we could use, how we're going to do that? I don't know if you guys were here when we did isogram, but have any ideas of how I can keep track of what letters I've seen so far? All right, so remember we talked a while back about having a set. So we can use a set to keep track of the letters that I've seen so far. Because when we say, is there a repeated character, how are we going to tell that? We're going to have to check and see if it's in the set of letters that I've seen along the way, right? And then if we keep, the other thing to keep in mind here before we start coding, if I'm keeping track of the starting position and the ending position here, so like here, when my length is 3, how do I calculate the length of this substring if I know the starting position and I know the ending position? So if I have these two numbers, the length of this string is 3, but how can I calculate this 3 from these numbers? Because if I just take end minus start, 2 minus 0 is just 2. But this is a 3-character string. So we have to make an adjustment, right? And part of why we have to make the adjustment is because the first one is starting at 0. So we're going to have to, if I want to know the length of this string, the length of the string that starts at position 0 and ends at position 2, then I have to do end minus start plus 1. And that will tell me the length of the string, right?
The famous off by 1 error that
Yeah.
programmers always have, off by 1 all the time. Then you
Yeah.
have to think about it. Oh, I'm including both ends, so it's like 1 more. Yeah.
Yeah, that is. That's a really common category of things that you have to make a little check on. And sometimes, I don't know about you, Mike, sometimes when you're doing this, in your mind, you're like, I don't know, I might need to add 1. Let me just try it and see what happens. And if it's not quite right, then yeah, that's probably one of these situations. So that's what you do. All right. All right, so look, guys, I'm going to start doing a little bit of coding to kind of talk us through how to do this, okay? So here's where I have set up, I have my same little thing. Again, I don't like to work directly in whatever is the IDE of these environments. I don't know, I just feel like I can do my console logging and tell what's going on a lot easier if I'm working in my VS Code window. So I am trying to find the length of this maximum substring. So it sounds like I'm going to need a variable to keep track of what that length is, right? I'm going to say let max equal 0. So that's going to be the thing that I'm going to return at the end. I'm going to keep figuring out what that is, and max is going to be my answer at the end. All right? So I'm going to need to keep track of the beginning and the ending of this thing. So I'm going to make one thing that says, I'm going to call it start equals 0, and I'm going to actually set up end in my loop that walks through the entire array. All right, so I need to loop through all the letters in this in string. So anybody want to tell me how I can write this loop? What kind of loop should I write if I want to just forget the complicated thing right now? I just want to print every single letter that's in the string, because I have to make sure that I know how to access the data, right? So anybody know how to walk through that? A string is like an array of characters. You can think of it that way, right? And if I'm walking through a fixed number of things, what's the best kind of loop that I should use?
Someone should know the answer.
Yeah, type in the chat. Don't mute. There's only.
Or turn off your, or open your mic up. You can
Mhm.
make this interactive. It'd be a lot more fun.
When you're walking through an array, what kind of loop do you typically use when you're walking through all the elements of an array? Yep,
It
a
is.
for loop. Absolutely. So I'm going to say for, and I'm going to use end, because that's going to be my one that's going to walk through and keep track of the ending of my string. End equals 0, end less than. Does anybody know how do I reference the length of an array here? Because that's when I need to stop, right? So the name of this is string, it's a string, but it actually behaves a little bit like an array. It behaves like an array of characters. So string dot length.
Yeah, it's a property.
Right? Yeah. So every string knows its length. And then end plus plus. So first I'm going to show you guys how we just show that we can reference every single letter in this array. So I'm going to actually just make a variable to represent the letter because I'm going to have to use it a little bit. So I'm going to call it LTR for letter equals. So how do I reference? Anybody know how I reference the letter that is at position end in this array? Just what's the syntax to do that? It's very similar to what we use in an array, right? So we've got the name of the string, and the position is going to be in that I want. So we're going to use square brackets. And we're going to check this out and make sure this works by saying console log. Right, let's test this up here with a little simple, let's see, I'm going to test it with, what was that first test case over there? I'm going to actually test it with with this. ABC, AB, since we've got that answer. So that's going to be my test string. I'm going to use it here. And so I'm going to call this function that returns. Now, right now, it's just going to return 0 because I haven't finished up what's going on. But I just want to first of all see that I am properly walking through all the elements of this array. Because if I'm not, all bets are off. I have to redo this. Oh, sorry, I'm running the wrong one. I have a different one that I was running. Let me make sure I'm running the one that I want to show you guys. So where's my index? This one is called repeating substring. Yeah, I want to call. This is the one I want to run. All right, so you see here, letter is A, B, C, A, B, C, B. So we are actually walking through all the letters of the array. So again, step by step, as you're going through this, guys, you got to verify, because if you just go on marching through this code and you're not referencing your letter properly, then something's going to be off, but you won't know exactly what it is, right? Now, we're going to need something else. We're going to need to keep track of all the letters that I have seen so far, okay? So I'm going to create a set for that. So I need to store all letters that I have seen. So I'm going to say let, and I'm going to call it letters equals a new set. So anybody remember what's the useful property of a set? There's something unique about using a set here. Remember we used it for isogram? So one of the things about a set is that all the elements of a set are expected to be unique. And a set will be pretty fast in terms of telling me if something is there. There's actually a function called has that I'll be able to use to tell me if a value is in my set, right? All right, so I'm walking through these letters. Let me talk to myself and think about what I need to do. So I need to figure out have I seen letter before? Okay. So now here's where probably when you were doing it, Mike, you think you want to do an if statement. But we need to, it's funny, we have to kind of think ahead to what's going to happen. Because remember, if I've seen it before, I've got to readjust my starting point. I want to get rid of it, right? It almost, coding it this way feels a little backwards because it feels like, wait, I haven't even done what I need to do to put something into the set yet. So actually, let's instead of doing this first, I'm going to leave that there, leave that comment that I need to think about something to do if I've seen it before. But once I get through that, what I also have to do for every letter, I need to add this letter to the set of letters that I've seen, right? So how would I add this letter to my set? So if I have this,
There's a function in the set that does that, I think.
yeah. So I have letters dot actually just add letter, and that will see. So look, let's kind of see if we're understanding what's going on with the set. Okay, so if I console log letters, I don't want to see these individual letters anymore. Each time we add a letter here, let's see what's going on. So you see my set is growing. A, B, A, B, C. Also, you'll notice that even though I'm adding some letters more than once, we're only seeing them in there one time. Now, it turns out we're going to have a little extra logic that's going to make sure we don't even try to add it if we've seen it before. But this is one of the characteristics of a set, is that if the value is already there, it doesn't put it in there again, right? All right, so here's the little kind of gotcha part here, is thinking about what I have to do here. So we actually need a loop, not an if statement, because if I've seen this letter before, if I go back to my little drawing, my little picture over here, if this letter is already in the list of letters that I've seen, let's again look at a situation here. So in this case, I've got A, B, C, X, B. B is already in the list of letters that I've seen. So this would be my substring that I've seen so far. My new letter would be B. This would be LTR. If I look into the set, I would see you've already seen a B. So what that means is I've got to take one off of the front. I need to move my starting pointer in order to, and I need to keep doing it until I don't have any repeats in there. So my condition needs to be while my set of letters, that's my set, if it has this letter in it, so if this letter is in the set of letters that I've seen so far, I'm going to try to restart my substring. So that means I want to delete, or I want to move start, my starting pointer. Remember, it started at 0. So I'm moving up a letter, and then I need to delete that letter from my set, because whatever letter I move up, then it might be a letter that, so I'm changing my substring, so I have to take that out of the set of letters that I've seen. Okay, looking at the picture again. If I move up and I take this A off, I'm not sure if there's an A elsewhere in here, so I got to take A out of the list of letters. I'm keeping track of the letters in my substring that I'm checking for. Okay, so I'm going to then delete. So letters dot delete what is in LTR, right? And I then need to move, actually, I shouldn't use this LTR. honestly, I just realized something I need to do because I think I have a little error in my little code here. I need to use my pointer. I need to use string begin, or sorry, start. Right? Because start is the position I'm at. I moved up one. I want to delete that particular one. And no, this is right. We're still thinking about this letter that I'm on right now. I found that this letter that I'm on has been repeated. So I don't have to change that. I keep looking and say, now, is in this new set, since I've deleted one, do I still see this letter that I'm on? If I don't, at whatever point it is where I don't see it anymore, then I am at a new starting point that I can start.
So as long as, so you're basically saying like, as long as like the new letter that you're about to add is somewhere in the set of past letters, you're just going to start chopping them off at the beginning until that set doesn't have your letter anymore.
That's right. Yeah. And again, guys, one of the reasons why I thought this was kind of an interesting problem, none of that is intuitive without kind of looking at some examples here. And also sometimes if you only look at, that's why you also need to look at, kind of a broad set of examples sometimes, because I've had that happen a lot, where I looked at one set of data, decided how it was supposed to work based on that one or two sets of data. And it turns out there was some case that I didn't account for. So my algorithm was not complete because of that. So the more time you think trying to come up with some examples and trying to walk through what you want this algorithm to do in that case, and trying to think of these bad cases or kind of weird cases, the better you can kind of plan. And it's so much easier to adjust your coding kind of before you start really coding it. Because sometimes if you have already written something and now you're trying to fix it, sometimes you start just hacking at it. And you might make it work, but it may not be a very elegant way of making it work, as opposed to, it really is, it kind of I always talk about the 80-20 rule. You honestly need to spend more time thinking through and planning. And if you do that, then the coding part will be not the hardest part of the whole thing. So yeah, so what I want to do here, again, looking at this, I get A, B, C. Okay, so in my set of letters right now, it's going to be A, B, C, right? This is what's in letters. I get to an A again. So I'm trying to change this start such that A is not in this list, right? So I take off the first letter, I remove it from the list, I check again my list of letters. Is an A in there? No. All right, so now I can move on and make this my string. And yes, I'm going to put A back in there. So I kind of take it out and put it back in. Then I get to this repeated B. I chop this off, I take the B out, I'm still looking for this B, right? Because sometimes you have to move more than one to get rid of the letter that you're trying to get rid of. So when we get to the point, for example, here, when we get to A, B, C, we're going to get to this point where we have A, B, C, X, which is actually the longest one. And when we get to this next B, so this is the letter that I'm keying on, I'm going to chop off the A. So I've got A, B, C, X. We chop off the A. We say, okay, is there a B in there still? Yeah, there's still a B in there. So I have to chop off the B. Is there a B in there still? No. Now I can start. Now that means C can be the beginning, because now if I have CXB, then there's no B in it, right? So that's why that's a loop and that's not an if statement. I have to keep chopping off and looking until this letter, this new letter, is unique in the substring. That's what I'm trying to do. Make this new letter unique in the substring. And I do that by moving the start position, right?
That makes me think, Pam, there's a term that we use called invariant condition. I don't know if you know about this. So it's a little bit of a fancy word, but I was just thinking, like, what you're trying to do in this code is like you have this set called letters, and then you have the start and end variables. And whenever you change the start variable or the end variable, you want to make sure that an invariant condition is that all the letters that appear between start and end are exactly the letters that are in the set. So that's you could actually kind of write that as a comment or something like the loop invariant, like letters is exactly the set of all the things between start and end.
That's right. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Yeah, so when I get to the end of here, this letters is the set of what is in the current substring. And we also know that they're unique because we won't let anything go in there if we've got more than one. So then again, this didn't change. Once we know we have a start and an end that defines a substring that's unique, I want to add that to the letters. But then there's one more little bit of logic here. We'll get rid of this. We need to figure out what's the length of this substring now, right? So what is the length of this substring? I'm adding a couple extra variables here just to make things clear, guys. Remember we talked about how we calculate the length? So I could say let string length, that's a bad name, sub length, the length of this substring. Remember we said it was end minus begin plus 1. Okay, but is it the maximum? So here's the last little bit. Remember, we're trying to find the maximum length. So as I'm going along, remember this variable max started off at 0. So the first time I get anything, it's going to be bigger than 0, right? I'm going to run or replace it. So what am I going to do? How do I decide if this now needs to be the new maximum? Remember, if my length was 1, my maximum is 1. I find 2, my max is 2. I find 3, my max is 3. What am I doing each time? Why am I changing the value of max each time? Let me go to my paper here. So I'm going to have string length, or what did I call it? Sublength. And I have max. So the first time through, max is 0. When I find my first little substring, which is 1 character long, the length of that is 1. And at that point, I want my max to be 1, right? I find a new substring. My new substring is 2. So at that point, what should I do? Should I change max? If I find a string that's 2? And if I change it, what's the reason why I'm changing it? So if I find a bigger number, right? So if this number is bigger than this number, I forget the 1. I don't care about 1. 2 is the number that I want. If I find one that is 3, I look at here. Do I care about 2 anymore? No. 3 is the number that I want. So I need to keep the bigger of this or what my current max is, right? We could code that with an if statement, but it turns out there's a function that we could use. But how could I code it with an if statement? If I have this variable, if sublength, some condition is in here, then I want to change max. Anybody have an idea of what that would be here? What's the condition under which I want to change what my max is? If I find another number that's bigger, right? You guys are a quiet group this week. So if this length is bigger than max,
Yeah.
right? Then what's the statement I write in here to change the max? If I was going to code it this way, we're going to code it with a function. But if this number is bigger than max, I want to change max to what?
New value.
Yeah, to sublength.
Yeah.
Right? Which there's actually a max function that we could use. So then we don't have to actually write that if statement. So I can say max equals, it's math.max in JavaScript, and I want to keep the biggest number out of what the current value of max is or what this new value is. So it will assign to max whichever one is the biggest number, right? And then here's the end of my for loop. And the for loop walks through until we get through every single letter in the array. And then that's what I return as max. Let's see what goes on here. And actually, I am going to log something here so we can kind of watch what's going on. So what did I decide I want to log? If I want to see the substring that I'm actually looking at, there's a substring function. So I can log out string.substring start and n+1. That'll show me the substring that I'm looking at. And I'm also going to look at what's in letters. So we'll see that letters has just what's in that substring. All right, let's see if I did that the way I wanted to. Oh, letters. What line was that error in? 36. Letters. You're always happy when the problems are just something like that, just a little typo. Begin is not set. I think I changed my mind. It's called start. This is because I've done this a few different ways, right? The variable that I used was start. It wasn't called begin. This is why, like I say all the time, got to think through your variable names. There we go. So look, I came out of the loop. My substring was just A. What's in set? Only A. I came out of the loop. My substring is AB. That's what's in the set of letters. I came out of the loop. My substring is ABC. So we can see here that that's what we have at any given time. If this is my substring, that is what is in the set of letters that I'm looking for. And at the end, we get our max is 3. I'm going to run this other little case that should give me 4. I think it's this one. Yeah, this one should have 4 letters in it. Yeah, so this one is 4. You see, we get ABC, then we get our ABCX, we get ACX or BCXB. So here we're seeing, yeah.
It shouldn't have A anymore, should it? Or you remove it later? No.
Yeah, I'm looking at the answer is right, but I am looking at why am I seeing BCXB? Why is the A still in there when I did BCXB? What did I do here? So we take off start, we delete what's in start.
Or maybe delete it before you increment start. Did you increment it out of order?
Ooh, you are so right. Yep. Guys, the order of doing things is important. I want to delete it. That's absolutely right. I find a letter that's repeating. I want to delete what's at the start of the list and then move the pointer. So that was sometimes, I'm actually happy when things go wrong like this to prove the point that, you got to look carefully and you got to think about the order of doing things. So now, ABCX. Yeah.
CXP.
Yeah,
Get rid of the A. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. But you notice with that other data set, I don't think I noticed it. So again, this is why you have to do quite a bit of testing.
Multiple tests. Yeah.
If we want to, let's see if we want to make this a little longer, let's make A, B, C, X, Z or something. So now we should actually have one more letter in here.
5.
Yeah. So we have 5, right?
I would also, one thing you made me think about, JavaScript has a bunch of substring functions, and I know it's really confusing. There's a subster, a substring, and a slice function. I tend to always use like the slice function because it's the exact same name as that you can use with arrays. So I like to just kind of simplify my life and not use the string specific functions and just use slice instead. Just
Yeah.
just because I know that it works across the board no matter what kind of array you have.
Yeah. And slice, now I have to tell you because I do JavaScript, but JavaScript, I sort of don't consider JavaScript my native programming language, so to speak. And JavaScript actually, though, has things in it that are like really my most native language is C++, which is actually a much more doesn't have quite as many goodies built into it as, and then my next native language is probably Java, which has more goodies built into it. That's why I really love Java once I got to it. But JavaScript has even more. And always sometimes when I do these things, my brain does not, I don't have all of the JavaScript string functions at the top of my brain because they don't exist in all languages. So whenever I'm doing string stuff, and that's actually what we're going to do next week is a string problem. I always, and I don't know why this is not letting me search like I want to. I want to search for the string. Oh, it's just spinning on me. I always go look at the list of string functions and even array functions because JavaScript has a pretty rich list of string functions and array functions that you can use to do certain things. And so slice is one of them, but slice is not one. Maybe, hey, Mike, can you explain slice really quickly? I was just trying to bring it up because I don't just bring it at the top of my head, bring it up.
Slice is almost identical to substring. I think it only has the difference if the numbers are out of order, where it generally just always returns an empty string if you got the start and end out in the wrong order. So, but it acts just like the array.slice. So it's a begin index and an end index, and it returns all the characters that are between the begin index inclusive and the index exclusive.
Yeah. So it just pulls out a slice of the string based on the position that you give it in there.
Yeah, and in Python, there's like a special like syntax for doing slices of arrays and things like that. So it's good. It's easy to remember for someone if you're multilingual, and then you kind of learn the slice, and you can use it on the different languages, and it works in arrays and strings and things like that.
Yeah, yeah. So guys, look, I know, again, it doesn't end up being a lot of code. There really is like the thought process that you have to put into this. But I also know that that's probably maybe kind of stressing you guys out a little bit because you think about technical interviews and, oh my God, how am I going to think about how to do this? So I'm giving you a lead into the commercial for tomorrow, Mike, where you're going to kind of be the guinea pig tomorrow, right?
Either I will or David will. We haven't decided who's going to ask the question, who's going to answer it.
Yeah, so tomorrow, if you're able to, that's at 11
11 Pacific, yeah.
Yeah, and if not, it'll be on YouTube. You guys get a chance to see kind of a live role play of a technical interview because I don't think whoever does it, you guys are not going to talk about the question ahead of time, right?
No, we don't know. We don't know. We don't even know who's asking it. So yeah, so I have one prepared, and I'm sure David has. Everybody who interviews a lot of people, you have a lot of questions that you've asked people before. So I'll just use one of those questions, and if I'm asking him, and I'm sure he has one for me. So yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And so it's just important in those things you'll find out tomorrow to kind of talk through what's in your head.
Yeah.
Talk to look, it's also a stalling tactic, right? While you're trying to think through what to do, you talk about what you do understand
Yeah.
about the problem.
Well, also, if you just to make sure that you really understand the problem, and so that you don't go off in a, if you're really quiet, the interviewer doesn't know what you're thinking, and you might be trying to solve a harder problem, and you're just going off in your mind like on some tangent. If you talk out loud, they can say, "Oh, wait a minute, that's really a lot more complicated than what I wanted to hear. Let's talk about a simpler version," or "This is what I really meant." And and they it's also an opportunity to get hints, because I think when people are asking these questions, they know sometimes it takes a little bit of a tricky step of logic or something like that, and they're willing to give you a hint for things, and the fewer hints you need, the better, but you want to get to having a solution, so they'll give you hints until you can get to a solution of the problem. It might not be the best solution, but but you do want to talk out loud, and they'll help guide you or correct you if you're going off in the wrong direction.
Yeah, yeah. So good. So guys, you all have been a quiet bunch today. Anybody have any questions or anything else that you want me to talk about here on this problem? And I will tell you the problem for next week. I will post it in the channel. We're going to do a problem that basically just has to do with some manipulation of strings. It's kind of a sometimes I call them goofy little problems. It's almost like a little pig Latin problem or something like that, where you have to take a string of letters and you have to do some manipulation of them.
Okay.
So
I solved this week's problem in a slightly different way. I used a map instead of a set.
oh yeah, that is another way to do it. I don't know if you want to talk through, because I did see that idea of how to do it. Do you want to talk through how to do that?
Sure. Can I share my screen? Let's see.
Yeah.
You have to enable it.
Yeah, hold on. Here we go. And so you kept track of the position where you found the character? Did you keep?
Yes. Let's see. Is this, I think this is the right screen. Can you see that? Maybe it's kind of small. Let me shrink this down. This was my LeetCode. Can you see that?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to keep track of, now I use TypeScript. So this is like JavaScript, but it has type information. So it's like a little bit more precise than JavaScript. It translates to JavaScript ultimately. So here you have to say, oh, my map is actually mapping strings or characters to numbers, which are positions in the string that you got initially. And I had, instead of max, I used the word best. And then very similar to you, I just had a loop that went through all the characters, found, got the character the new character I'm looking at. But then I used my map to find the position where that character appeared, the last appeared in the string. Because I know that I'm going to have to get rid of all the characters from the previous start up until that position. So, right. So I did it the backwards way. I said, well, if I didn't find the character, that's the easy case, and I just can. This is kind of like updating the max. If the length of the string, and I didn't put it in a separate variable, but if the new length of the string is better than my best I've seen so far, then just update it to be that new length. Mm-hmm. And then this is the case where I'm actually getting rid of stuff. So now at this point, I know I have to get rid of all of the characters from my map that are between start and the position +1, like the where the new character would be. So, or meet start and position, yeah, the inclusive of the position where that character appears. So the duplicated character is somewhere in the middle of the string. I want to get everything between start and that character.
Right.
So then I just go through and delete them all. And then now I know my new start position is right after where that character appeared. And then I know in both cases, whether I found it or didn't find it before, I'm adding the new position back into my map, because I didn't use a set like you, so I used I have to keep track of where the, if I have a second B, I need to know now where the new B is. So I take the old B out of my map, and then this line adds the new position of the letter, so I can continue on and keep adding to the list. And at the end, returning the best length. So.
Yeah. I think I saw a solution, something like that, and I don't know if I'll be able to think, but I don't know if they actually used a loop to get rid of the letters. Like it was more important just to know, you move start to 1 before that.
Oh, I could have just updated my set, actually. I didn't have to remove them, maybe. You know
Yeah.
what? I think you're right. I didn't have to remove them because I could have just, no, that's not right. I think I have to remove them because I wouldn't want to think that they were part of my set before. Yeah, I'd have to think about it. Maybe there'd be another way of like not actually deleting them, but then ignoring them if they're smaller than the start anyway or something.
I think the difference, you have to add an if statement that checks something about start and begin and end.
Yeah. If the duplicate letter is already in before your start, you don't have to. Yeah. So I just deleted everything from the map. So I have that invariant condition like you had. My map is the invariant. It has only the string, only the characters that are in between start and end, and has their positions in that string.
Yeah, good. So guys, you see there can often be multiple approaches. Sylvie, so as soon as this video processes a little later on today, Mike will get it posted. All right.
Unless she's asking about the next problem, or is she talking about the video or the next problem?
Yeah, which are you asking about? I'm going to post the next.
The next one. The next problem.
I'll post it actually right after. I'll post it as soon as I get off of here. I'll post it in the channel.
And the coding challenges on Slack. Yeah.
Yeah. I'll post it right after I get off of here, and then we'll get the video posted a little later too. All right. Yes. So guys, just keep working. Keep working. And if you are working on a problem, you guys can find problems that you're working on. If you get a little stuck on them and want to, get some help with it, just reach out to me on Slack, and we can possibly schedule kind of an office hour with me, and I can help you kind of think through what to do. So I'm more than happy to do that, right? To help you through kind of an approach to a problem. All right. All right, so I'm going to stop this recording.
Thank you, Pam.
All righty. Did I stop it? Yes.